When the last candle flickered in the old chapel, a soft wind brushed past the pews, carrying the scent of ancient flowers and the quiet murmur of prayers long forgotten. The woman kneeling at the altar did not move. Her eyes were fixed on the statue of the Virgin Mary, carved in marble centuries ago. Tears glistening under the trembling flame, her name was Elena. To the villagers, she was the woman who waited for her child to return, waited for her prayers to be answered, waited for a sign that heaven still listened. Every evening for 7 years she came here, whispering the same words into the silence. Mother Mary, please bring him back to me. No one remembered her husband, gone when the sea swallowed his fishing boat. No one spoke much about her son, Daniel, who had run away after that, angry at God, angry at the world, leaving behind a mother who had only her faith left. That faith had once been strong, so strong it could have moved mountains. But with every year that passed, with every unanswered prayer, it had begun to crack, like the worn floor of the chapel beneath her knees. Still she came. Still she prayed. That evening, as her voice trembled in the candlelight, she lifted her eyes and whispered, Mary, they say you watched your son suffer too. You knew what it meant to lose him, to watch love slip away. I can't bear this anymore. Tell me what to do. Tell me how to keep believing. The air was still, but slowly, gently, a drop of wax slipped down the candle, glowing red against the flame. And in that flicker, something stirred in Elena's heart, a presence soft and wordless like a hand on her shoulder. She turned quickly, but no one was there. Still, warmth rushed through her chest, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. That night, rain fell on the cobblestone streets as Elena walked home. The sea roared in the distance, and thunder rolled far off the coast. She paused when she reached her gate, because standing there, soaked to the bone, was a young man. He turned slowly, his face pale and tired, a shadow of the boy she once knew. It took her a heartbeat to recognize him. Then the world seemed to shatter and come alive all at once. Daniel, her son. Neither of them spoke. She dropped her shawl, ran to him, and held him so tightly that the rain itself seemed to fall in silence. He trembled in her arms, whispering, I wanted to come home sooner, Mama, but I didn't know how. I didn't think you'd want me anymore. She pressed her forehead to his. You were never lost to me. I asked her to bring you back. He looked up, confused, and she pointed toward the chapel on the hill, where the candlelight still danced faintly through the stained glass. He followed her gaze, his eyes catching that distant glow. And for the first time in years he knelt beside her later that night as they prayed together, not to beg, but to thank. Days passed, then weeks. Daniel helped repair the chapel, painting its doors, sweeping the floors, fixing the cracks that had gathered over time. He never spoke much about where he had been, only that darkness had followed him, and he had forgotten who he was. It was his mother's voice, he said, that had echoed in his dreams, guiding him home. One afternoon, as he worked near the altar, he noticed something strange. The marble statue of Mary, usually serene and still, had a delicate streak of moisture tracing her cheek. At first he thought it was the light, but when Elena came closer, she saw it too, a tear glimmering like dew. It wasn't water from the ceiling, nor the humidity from the rain. It felt alive. Word spread through the village. People came, candles in hand, kneeling quietly before the weeping Madonna. Some cried, some smiled, and others simply bowed their heads in reverent silence. Eleanor said nothing. She just sat at the back pew watching as the light touched the statue like a mother's gentle hand. Weeks later, Daniel fell ill. It started with a fever, then weakness. The doctor from the next town tried everything, but his condition worsened. Helena stayed by his side, singing softly, praying louder than her pain. One night, as he lay unconscious, she whispered, Please, Mother, I can't lose him again. Take my years if you must, just let him live. As dawn broke, she woke to find his fever gone. Daniel slept peacefully, his color returning, his breath steady. But Eleanor felt faint, a deep stillness settling over her body. When she tried to call his name, her voice barely rose. She smiled, touched his hand, and closed her eyes. The villagers said she looked as if she was sleeping, her face calm and radiant. They buried her near the chapel she loved so much, under the olive tree that always bloomed a little earlier than the rest. Daniel woke days later and learned what happened. The chapel bells rang that evening without anyone pulling their ropes. The wind carried a soft melody through the valleys, and people said it sounded like a mother's lullaby. When Daniel returned to the chapel and knelt before the statue, he saw something that made him weep. The Virgin Mary's tear had dried, but in its place, a tiny white flower had grown from the crack in the marble, delicate and luminous. No one knew how it could have sprouted there, but Daniel knew. He reached out, touched it gently, and whispered, "You brought me back. And now you've brought her home." He kept the chapel alive for the rest of his days. Travelers passing through would stop there, sit quietly, and somehow leave lighter than before. They said the air itself felt like forgiveness. Some claimed to have seen a woman with a shawl of light kneeling near the altar. Hands folded, eyes serene. Daniel never confirmed it. But each evening, he placed a candle at her feet and whispered, "Thank you, Mother Mary." Years later, a storyteller from English Story Cafe visited the village, hearing tales of a chapel where miracles once bloomed from marble. He sat there in the twilight, listening to the waves crashing beyond the hill, and felt something stir in his soul. A strange calm, a quiet warmth, as if the Virgin herself was still watching over the world, reminding everyone that love once given never dies. And in that stillness, the candlelight trembled again, soft, golden, eternal, just like the faith of a mother who refused to stop believing.